Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year, happy Master's birthday, and welcome to our Sunday Satsang. This morning we are doing an affirmation from Affirmations for Self-Healing from Swami Kriyananda. And the affirmation for today is on success. This is what Swamiji says about success. True success means transcendence. It means finding what we really want, which is not outward things, but inner peace of mind, self-understanding, and above all, the joy of God. Outward success means transcendence also. It means rising above past accomplishments to reach new levels of achievement. Success can mean accepting failure too, when such acceptance helps us to transcend a false ambition. Every failure, moreover, can be a stepping stone to highest achievement. Success should not be measured by the things accomplished, but by our increasing understanding, ability, and closeness to God. And please affirm with me, say out loud, with a lot of energy, concentrating here. I leave behind me both my failures and accomplishments. What I do today will create a new and better future, filled with inner joy. Again, I leave behind me both my failures and accomplishments. What I do today will create a new and better future, filled with inner joy. A little more quietly with deep concentration. I leave behind me both my failures and accomplishments. What I do today will create a new and better future, filled with inner joy. And now in a whisper, I leave behind me both my failures and accomplishments. What I do today will create a new and better future, filled with inner joy. And now silently, with deep concentration at the point between the eyebrows, taking it into the superconscious mind, I leave behind me both my failures and accomplishments. What I do today will create a new and better future, filled with inner joy. I leave behind me both my failures and accomplishments. What I do today will create a new and better future, filled with inner joy. And now please pray silently with me. O Creator of galaxies and countless blazing stars, the power of the very universe is thine. May I reflect that power in the little mirror of my life and consciousness. Om Shanti Shanti. And this is a reading from Rays of the One Light by Swami Kriyananda. And the title is At the Heart of Silence, the Eternal Word. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. In the Gospel of St. John, these immortal lines appear. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. Human vision beholds individuality and separation everywhere. Divine vision beholds the oneness of cosmic vibration, of which all things, no matter how diverse, are manifestations. Cosmic sound, the Word of God, the cosmic light, these are eternal. The world, as revealed to us by our senses, is illusory. In Autobiography of a Yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda relates an early experience he received of the divine aspect of reality. Sitting on my bed one morning, I fell into a deep reverie. What is behind the darkness of closed eyes? This probing thought came powerfully into my mind. An immense flash of light at once manifested to my inward gaze. Divine shapes of saints, sitting in meditation posture in mountain caves, formed like miniature cinema pictures on the large screen of radiance within my forehead. "Who are you?" I spoke aloud. "We are the Himalayan yogis." The celestial response is difficult to describe. My heart was thrilled. Ah, I long to go to the Himalayas and become like you. The vision vanished, but the silvery beams expanded in ever-widening circles to infinity. What is this wondrous glow? I am Ishvara. I am light. The voice was as murmuring clouds. I want to be one with thee. Out of the slow dwindling of my divine ecstasy, I salvaged a permanent legacy of inspiration to seek God. Wise are we if we meditate on that experience of Yogananda's and salvage from it even a breath of his inspiration. For, quite simply, there is nothing else. As the Bhagavad Gita says in the 7th chapter, I make and unmake this universe. Apart from me, nothing exists, O Arjuna. All things, like the beads of a necklace, are strung together on the thread of my consciousness and are sustained by me. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind.
And from Whispers from Eternity by Paramahansa Yogananda, entitled, All Futurity Danced in Me the Infinite Rhythm. I disconnected my awareness from the little garden plot of the senses and switched it to the vast territory of the infinite. The aurora of my awareness spread like dancing waves of light in the aurora borealis and embraced thy cosmic wonderland. When thus I entered that vast panorama, my awareness no longer dulled by the opiate of sensory noises, nor blindfolded by the veil of mere appearances. I stood, marveling before countless streams of radiant, rushing thoughts, rippling through millennia from long dead, still living, and yet to be born civilizations. All time, past, present, future, danced in infinitude of rhythms on the stage of my all-embracing consciousness. This is Yogananda's 125th birthday, and it's quite something. When Swami Kriyananda was a young monk, he at one point experienced something that really was a bit unusual for him at that time. And it was this. There was Yogananda standing before him. And his thought was, he's infinite. So he's beyond this form. And yet there he is standing before me. And he was pondering, how could that be possible? And so Yogananda, of course, being omnipresent, caught his thought and handed him an apple. And it was a little jarring, but the message was very, very clear. We are both human and divine. But of course, we know that we are divine first, and this human experience that we're having is just a dream. So what a sweet lesson, and really humorous that Yogananda, again catching that thought, the great value of the masters being omnipresent, handed him an apple to ground him. And yet, at the same time, Swami Kriyananda well knew that Yogananda was no ordinary man. He said, too, that he had a difficult time picturing Yogananda when he would want to meditate on him, which is a wonderful thing to do, especially meditating on the Guru's eyes. He had a hard time picturing him because his consciousness was ever-changing. As he said, he would be posing before, for instance, Portis Gil, the president there in Mexico. And he looked like, to some extent, Portis Gil. And then he would be there before, standing before, posing with Amelia Gallicurci, the famed soprano. And in a way, as Swamiji said, he looked even a little frail, as she was. And how great his heart was, his natural sympathies of the heart, as he would blend in to the higher awareness, to the soul awareness of the individuals that he was with in order to draw their consciousness up. When he was just a little boy, of course, he came in as a master. And the fun, you might say, of reading the autobiography of a yogi, and especially, I would say, for the first time, is that you think that he was going through these sadhanas, some of them quite intensive sadhanas, because he was trying to break through, as we all are, to cosmic consciousness. But he came in free, as is true of all of the gurus. As he said, I killed Yogananda long ago. No one dwells in this temple now but God. But even as a young child, his mother and sister came upon him on the stairs. He was probably just 5 years old. And he was chanting with such power the name of Kali, who he loved so much as Divine Mother, that they were taken aback. You don't often see that experience. Just a little one chanting with that much concentration, that much power, burning up the universe. As we read oftentimes in Whispers from Eternity, that as Yogananda said, I'll be a naughty baby, and if you don't come, I will shake this universe, apart and so forth. And these great ones have that kind of power. And yet there isn't the need to do that because, of course, with these great ones, God is with them at all times. And so even as a young child, he knew what he was getting into when he came into this world. He said, when it's time to take on a personality, it kind of feels like a hot coat on a hot summer day, and it's a little scratchy. But you get used to it. And these great ones, they don't need to come to this world. They come for us. Yogananda, when he was in India, and he loved India, and it was a real hardship for him on a human level, once he came to the United States in 1920, to only get back one time in the mid-30s. That was it. And when he was here, visiting the saints and so forth, he spent some time with Yogi Ramya, who was also a liberated soul. And he walked hand in hand with him. And he said, if I had been 30 more minutes with Yogi Ramya, I couldn't have got myself to leave India. And so it was very hard for him to leave this precious land because this is where he had found God. And he tried, and he was going to take Swami Kriyananda with him in the 50s. He tried 3 years in a row in succession. And when Swami Kriyananda would say, are we going this year? He would say, it's in Divine Mother's hands. And Swami Kriyananda was, of course, impressed that he was so detached when he knew how much he wanted to go back to India, but he only did what Divine Mother wanted. So Swami Kriyananda said, I too tried to be detached. He said, I wasn't very successful, but I made the effort because, of course, wow, coming to India with Yogananda, wow, fantastic. But as it worked out, Yogananda did say to Swami, he said, I have plans for you, Walter. He used to call him Walter. And so Swami Kriyananda figured, of course, that was India. But it was a long, long time until he came to India in his mid-70s. And we didn't know really from Ananda in California if we would ever get here. because Swamiji's health had been frail for some years. And, numbers of us would come on pilgrimage and so on, but that was a lot different than coming with a band of people as we did when Swami Kriyananda finally felt inside. After establishing centers in America and then in Italy, he thought, okay, now is the time. And it was a dramatic time. There was one point where he came to a satsang, and he didn't, actually it was much more than a satsang. It was a large public event, no doubt with thousands of people. He came in an ambulance. I thought, I've never heard of that before. There was no way he was going to disappoint the people there. And many, many times he would give talks, and prior to the talks, different ones of us would be there with him, and he would just be so exhausted. He didn't know how he could even get up to the stage, not to mention to chant and to give a talk. But again and again, Spirit flowed through. And he always credited, rightly so, Yogananda. He said, God is the doer. This is Master's presence flowing through me with all the songs that he composed and all of the writings and so forth. Because he got to the point as a highly advanced disciple where really he couldn't really differentiate between his thoughts and the Master's thoughts. And so these great ones come down with an enormous yearning to help us all. And when Yogananda saw the vision there in Ranchi, in that little storeroom, he had found a little spot to hide from the students. They were always finding him. So he was always looking for new spots where he could meditate and spend a little bit of time alone. And there he had the vision. And he saw there in America many saints awaiting there to be awakened in God. And so his hunger then, although again he wanted to stay in India, was to come to the States. And it was not easy because he didn't know the language. And one of the amazing stories was when he was on the boat, someone asked him to speak. And he was horrified because he didn't know the language. Could you imagine yourself? Public speaking is supposedly, and I think it's true, the number one fear in America, and I think in the world. Well, how about if you don't have the language? And he stood there for 10 minutes. Now, that's a long time. Those of you that perhaps have done any public speaking, 10 seconds is a long time if you're standing there before a group. A minute is a long time. 10 minutes is unthinkable. And yet there he was, because he didn't know the language. But what happened is his guru, Sri Yukteswar, saved him. He said, speak. And he did. But then afterwards, he had to go around discreetly and find out what he had talked about. Because in this heightened superconscious state, there was this wonderful flow. And then from there, it was not easy for him in America in the early years, because he had his long hair, which was unusual there. He was dressed from head to toe in orange, including orange shoes, and so forth. In time, he adopted, more traditional Western dress. But in the beginning, there it was. And so he got teased and he got ridiculed, and he was living as Dr. Lewis's most advanced disciple, his first disciple and highly advanced. He was living almost in a state of poverty. And he would say to Dr. Lewis, great things will come, doctor, great things will come from this. And Dr. Lewis was always wondering when. And then in time, in 3 short years, he began his ministry, where he filled the largest halls in the land. And it was truly a phenomenon. And so to have these great ones with us, and they are with us, we think, oh, we missed the boat if we harbor the thought, we didn't get to know Yogananda. Well, what did he say about that? And how hopeful it is for us to hear these words. He says, when I leave this body, I'll even be more with you. One less thing to think about. Think of that time in the path Swami Kriyananda's autobiography of a yogi, when Yogananda, and he was in ecstasy the last 3 years of his life, and he was walking with Swami Kriyananda, and Swami Kriyananda was propping him up, because otherwise he might have fallen. He said, it's so hard to keep this one body moving. I'm in all bodies. Like Lahiri Mahashaya at one point cried out, I'm drowning in many souls off of the coast of Japan. And the disciples didn't know because the news wasn't out quite what he was talking about. And he didn't have to make a dramatic point. But from time to time, these great ones need to give us a good shake. Their mere presence does that. But there are these times when they will give us a real shock and reveal that they're not just this body, that they truly are omnipresent. And again and again and again, Swami Kriyananda would be with him. And he would have a question. And Yogananda would answer the question. He wouldn't have to voice it. He would answer it because he said, I know every single thought you're thinking. And so for us, even though it's been 125 years since Yogananda's birth, Yogananda and all of the great ones, they are with us. They are truly a thought away. And that's why when we think about environment is stronger than will, which is true, and we want to do always our best to be in environments that are sattvic and uplifting to the extent that we can. For the yogi, the environment is here. As Yogananda said, I live in your heart. And it's true. God is the guru. God lives in our heart. And so it's just one thought away. Little do people know that if they worked on their thoughts, a disciplined mind's a happy mind, they would find themselves really beginning to taste of paradise. Because as we work on our thoughts and we work on being generous with sharing our blessings with others, we're talking with people and we're sending them light. We're not just talking, we're praying for them too. As we begin more and more to make a sadhana of being aware and being alert, and especially practicing the presence of God and feeling the presence of the gurus and sharing that presence, then we find our life bit by bit begins to take on a wondrous form. And we begin to think, my goodness, this is good stuff. This is really good stuff. Yogananda said, and I was so happy to stumble upon this passage, he said, long before we find God, there will be many blessings. And that is absolutely true. And that's why it's such a joy to spend time with one another, because we see in one another the Guru's blessings and God's blessings flowing through the eyes and face. And again, I have said, and I repeat now, you go and spend time with sattvic people and they'll heal you at a glance. It's amazing. We're not just one-horsepower engines. As Yogananda said, I came for the racehorses. And that's what we are striving to be. And that takes a commitment to being awake. It takes a commitment to keeping our hearts open. It means that we want to make that commitment to keep our energy positive at all times. Because in that way, then we are more and more in tune with the Guru. And so, what a joy for us to celebrate Yogananda's birthday. Because the birth of these great ones, it's rare. When he comes back next time, and he told us, or he told the disciples rather, and us through his writings, that when he comes back next time, in a couple of 100 years, he's going to have a small band of disciples there, and he's going to the Himalayas, and he's going to be walking blissfully by the Ganga. He said that incarnation, that future incarnation, needs to balance out this one, where he was extremely active. So even the great ones need to spend a little bit of time alone and in God. And so, God bless you all. Happy Master's birthday. Happy New Year. And let's do what we can in this New Year 2018 to go as deep as we possibly can and share these blessings with all those who cross our path. But not only that, all those in this world, because the need is very, very great. And the more we can share of this light, the better this world will be, and the consciousness will continue to rise.